I fell into this deep, dark hole. I was isolated. I was lonely. I had such a huge fear of what was going on in my head. I was freaking out, and I was just trying to get control. My name's Jennifer Brower, and I'm here to share my story in hopes to help others. So in 2005, Jacksonville hosted the Super Bowl, and my partner and I had the contact from ESPN to run the events for them. And all of these things started happening to me, and I was not able to keep up. All of a sudden, my fingers were going numb, and my business partner and I were working very closely and trying to get all the events set up, and I started having panic attacks, and I started having situations happen that were not normal for me. I was very active. I have 3 kids, I'm married. Everyone was into sports and school and church, and everything that we did together as a group. And all of a sudden, I couldn't keep up, and I couldn't figure out why. And all I know is that at that point in time, the fear, the panic attacks, the anxiety were overwhelming, and I just had to figure out what was going on. So my symptoms kept increasing and getting worse and worse. I would close my eyes at night, and these white flashes would just start happening. And I had to figure out what was going on. There was a doctor in my town that started doing IVs, boosting my immune system. And as we were trying to figure out the testing to discern what was happening in my body, people would see me and they would think I was perfectly normal, even though inside I was shut down, closed, and paranoid. But I didn't have a cast like most people would have if they were hurt or injured. I needed a full body cast from my head to my toes because everything was malfunctioning, and I just didn't know what to do with it. So I just started walking. I knew if I continued walking and researching, I was going to figure it out, because I had to make the choice of having the courage to walk forward and not have this darkness take over. So I started searching for answers. I got diagnosed having 3 lumbar punctures, and the diagnoses were meningitis, Epstein-Barr, Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And what I didn't know at the time, and no one said, that those are all co-infections with Lyme disease. It was a friend of mine that actually came to me because she knew I was searching for an answer and said, I think you have Lyme disease. And I went to a very well-known specialist for Lyme. And I said, I think I have Lyme disease. And he said, you live in Florida, you don't have Lyme. But as I kept searching, we found out, yes, in fact, I did. So at night, when I would try to go to sleep, I would feel this movement in my brain. It felt like little bugs were crawling around. I knew something was extremely, extremely wrong. When I tried to explain it to doctors of what I was feeling, I had this intense brain burn. It felt like somebody took a saw and literally sawed off the top of my head and put my head in a light socket. The pain of the brain burn was so intense, I could get injured anywhere else in my body, and I would not know it because the brain would not release the intensity of the fire and burning. I was traveling all over the country, talking to the top doctors at many, many hospitals, trying to figure out what was going on. And finally, a doctor took the blood and sent it to a company in California called IGenics, and they confirmed that I had Lyme disease, and it was lit up like a Christmas tree. It was so bad, in fact, that IGenics called me and said, we're checking on you because this is one of the most severe tests we've ever seen. And then a week later, I got a call from the CDC saying the same thing, that I had Lyme disease to such a large capacity that they were telling me not to go to a hospital, not to go out. I had no immune system. The brain burn continued. And as I was searching, I found a group out in Arizona who were awesome, and they were trying to build up my immune system and try to figure out where this brain burn was coming from. So we did green juice diets fast for a month. I did IVs, I had colonics, I did lymphatic drainage, I did myofascial release, acupuncture. They were doing everything to get rid of whatever was happening in my body and helping me detox at the same time. But then I would go home, and after a few days, I felt like I'd take 2 steps forward, and then all of a sudden I would be like 3 steps back, and I couldn't figure out what's going on. Like, why was I healing in Arizona, but not being able to keep that healing going when I got home? And that's when we found out we had mold in our house. That's why I wasn't getting better. Specifically, Aspergillus and ochratoxin. And within 3 days, our house was bulldozed. 3 kids, 2 dogs, 2 cats, and my husband, we had to move out and figure out a place to live. On top of the fact that I was hardly functioning at that time. I literally was just walking in the dark. So we found this doctor in Florida, and he actually did all these tests before you went to see him. And through the PET scans, he said, "How many cell phones have you blown up?" And my husband said, "She won't hold a cell phone in her hand because I feel it in my brain." I would feel Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all EMF fields, which means electromagnetic fields. I could feel them. And it was due to the inflammation in my brain. So through the PET scans, he could see spirochetes and mold through the blood tests. So what would happen is the spirochete from the Lyme would go into your body, and it would find the weakest place in your body and decide to live there, and it would create a biofilm. Then the mold would also go into your body, and it would find the weakest spot, which is typically right where the Lyme already was. So the mold would go in, and it would nest right next to the spirochete and the biofilm and have its own biofilm. So the process was we had to kill the biofilm to drag out the mold, to then often through lab tests we'd see the mold would leave, but it also opened the biofilm so we could kill the spirochete and get that out of my system as well. The electromagnetic field sensitivity was very severe, and it made me feel like I was crippled. I lost a number of friends because they were like, "Jennifer Brower, where did she go?" So here I am. I'm with this doctor, and they think that the treatments are going to take 5 weeks. And I ended up basically moving to South Florida to be treated, which was very difficult because I had 3 kids in middle school. So I slowly just kept walking forward, knowing that if I just kept moving forward and kept researching and talking to people, that I would finally figure it out. So I stayed for a year and a half getting treatments. I started getting some stem cell treatments, and I felt like there should be a different way. So I was talking to this friend of mine who is a scientist, and I just said, I need those stem cells to go directly in my brain, and my present doctor doesn't know how to do that. And I think that nebulizing could do it. And he said, I know a doctor who can nebulize the stem cells and have it go directly in your brain. And then I met this amazing doctor.
I met Jen Brower 2 years ago, and we were introduced by a mutual person. And when I met her, I would say that she was about 50 to 60% improved from her initial symptoms. But at that time, she was still experiencing cognitive imbalances. She was having some motor issues, especially in her lower extremities. She was also telling me that she had some hormonal imbalances and memory loss. And then there were things that she just wanted to see improved in her life so that she could feel more optimal. And I told her that I had things in my tool belt that I felt could help her, and we decided to work together. My name is Dr. Nyree Abdul, and I am a holistic medical doctor in Florida. So I am a functional medicine doctor, and what that means is I'm really interested in getting to the root cause of what's happening with my patients. I'm not interested in just putting a Band-Aid. And so for me, really getting an understanding of what's happening in the foundation of their body is very, very important. And so some of the things that I do in my training has been in Chinese medicine and acupuncture, homeopathy. I do a tremendous amount of life coaching and detoxification techniques. And a lot of the central aspects of my practice is the IV program, which now includes stem cells and exosomes. So what I say to my patients when I meet them is, the main part of who I truly believe I am is what is referred to as an energy medicine woman. And I was kind of born that way. And what that means is I have this ability to see the in-between spaces, to really hear what people are talking about, but more so to interpret the things that they do not talk to me about. Understanding what's really driving their physical symptoms by their experiences in life, by the things that they came into this world to do. Like, everyone comes here with a purpose, and what is that soul's agenda? And so for me, when I'm looking at the physical body, it's so important to really get a sense of who are they and why are they here, and really what is the purpose of the physical aspect of the ailment that they're having. So the main triggers in the body, when we talk about why these imbalances happen or what makes that bridge kind of fall apart, right? So when people come in, we're going to look at certain aspects. And so the main things that trigger the leaky gut type of picture that we talk so much about now are food. That's one of the big categories. There's also metals and chemicals. Then we have the pathogens like the Lyme, the mold, the candida. We have viruses, we have parasites. We also have genetics, and again, our genetics do not define everything about us, but they are, a propensity towards a certain direction. And then again, the main category is our belief systems, our mindset. What do we believe? Because at the end of the day, those beliefs are going to be the ultimate deciding factor. So when we talk about leaky gut or dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of that good and not so good bacteria, that really correlates to the health of our brain. So when Jen came in and she was talking about the fact that she had this brain burn and all of these physical symptoms, I really wanted to take a look and evaluate these triggers. So when it comes to Lyme disease, I will say this: Lyme disease is really one of the most complex things to treat. I will say that treating cancer in my practice is actually a lot easier. Lyme disease, it is so different in its expression. And I can have 100 people show up and they all have a similar story in some ways, and yet it can have many, many different ways that it presents in their body. So if I were to follow what I learned in medical school and in my training, and I treated these people, to tell you the truth, I could actually make them worse. And for a lot of them, giving them antibiotics and the conventional treatment would not be the answer. So I myself had to search for different things. How was I going to educate myself and then put into my practice the things that I believed in and that I actually saw being effective? And that's what really got me on my journey. And so with Lyme disease and being in Florida, people didn't realize how prevalent it is. And really today, if a patient comes in and they have any type of chronic ailment, I am checking for Lyme and mold. It is an absolute, because it is such an umbrella of symptoms that it can mask many other things. So for me, when they come in and they're saying they've been ill for a long time and they've been to 20 doctors already and they don't know what's going on, Lyme disease and mold are at the top of my list to check. So when Jen came to see me, she was doing so much better, and she really had such great doctors to work with, and the data that they provided was amazing. So my goal was to look for any loopholes. Might there have been anything that was not looked at or we could look at differently? And one of the things that I see very commonly is that people are just not evaluated thoroughly enough. So when I look at someone who has these types of symptoms and I'm thinking that it might be Lyme disease and mold or a combination, we cannot just run a CBC, a lipid profile, a chemistry, urine analysis, and a Lyme or mold profile. We really need to look at the foundation, and that includes things like an autoimmune screen, their hormones, a complete thyroid with antibodies. We need to look at those co-infections, Babesia, Ehrlichia, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr, because if those things are on board, the treatment process is different. And I need to know, if I start stirring things around, that their body is prepared for what needs to happen. So in the beginning, what I do a lot, and I did this with Jen as well, is I tonify the system. And what that means is I want to make sure that that immune system can handle what I'm about to do, because we don't want to just go in and start killing things and the immune system is not capable of handling it. We want to build that body up so that it can handle the die-off. And then we also want to make sure that the channels of elimination, which are the way that we excrete this toxicity, that there's a flow to them. The liver's flowing, the GI system's flowing, the lymphatics have the drainage that they need, because it's like a dirty fish tank. If we go in, we start pouring some clean water in, and there's no way for that dirty stuff to go, it can actually make that person very, very ill. So a huge part of understanding how to treat Lyme disease is really knowing when and where to introduce a treatment. So, as I stated before, when I met Jen, she had done a multitude of treatments, and the core aspect of that were the IV treatments, and IV stands for intravenous. And what that means is we are bypassing the gut. And this is so important because, like we said before, when someone has an imbalance in their health, it's often attributed to the leaky gut picture, where there's a dysbiosis or an imbalance of the bacteria. So when we do these IVs, we're able to bypass the gut, and we're not depending on these nutrients to be absorbed in that area. We're doing it straight into a vein, which means it has 100% really bioavailability versus maybe 20, 30, 40% if we're doing it through the regular GI oral tract. So Jen had a multitude of IV treatments prior to when I met her. So when we started to talk, I basically was looking for the loopholes, what were the things that I could do that maybe she had not done before. So we did the extensive evaluation and we looked at those pieces. And so we started adding some new IV treatments. And so one of the things that I started her off on was chelation. And chelation is a way of removing the heavy metals and chemicals. And then she started to notice some things there, because she had already done the vitamin C, the amino acids, the glutathione, phosphatidylcholine. She had done a lot of the different amino acids, taurine, for example. So I thought I would start mixing those up with some of these newer treatments. And so I added the chelation, and I would say she started to notice some things with that. But when we actually really noticed a shift was when we started the ozone and the UV light. Okay, so ozone is O3, and basically it is a supercharged oxygen molecule. And what we do is we combine that with UV light, and UV light is anti-pathogenic. It kills things, it kills the viruses, it kills the bacteria. And then we supercharge it with oxygen to also help create a kill and also regenerate the body. So it's like going into a hyperbaric chamber with that pressurized oxygen, but now you're getting it directly into the veins. And my feeling was when Jen started to get the ozone and the UV light, we definitely started to notice some new things.
Definitely. I felt a relief of pain. I felt a clearing, like it was going through my veins and really starting to help assist the bad stuff out. I also felt the clearing stayed longer.
The ozone and the UV light kind of started that deepening process. I felt like she was ready to do NAD. And so again, a lot of treating these types of chronic ailments, it's knowing when to do what and how much of it, because
Yes.
it isn't that doing more is always better. It's making sure that the body can handle what the processing is. So when we added NAD, and NAD stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It's a nice big word. And what it means is NAD is a coenzyme, and it's found in every single cell of the body. And it's really important to generate the ATP that we find in our mitochondria. And the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. It's our battery. Like as human beings, we are living, walking, talking batteries. And as we get older or we have any type of chronic imbalances, those mitochondria get depleted, and then we don't have what we need to feel better and to get better. So the NAD has a way of getting in there, regenerating those batteries, rejuvenating the body. It's, it works on so many different levels. It's anti-aging, which is always a plus.
Yeah.
But really for us, we were more interested in some of the healing mechanisms. And this is one of the most beautiful things about the NAD is it can actually repair DNA damage. And that's huge.
And what was so great for me was I'd already done so much research on the NAD. I understood the atoms and the neurons had the capability to start talking. I understood the fact that our bodies make it until we're about 30. And then it goes to almost a half-life. And then at 40, it pretty much kind of just stops deciding to make it. And so any kind of oxidative stress or disorder that your body's trying to deal with, it doesn't have that energy to heal because it doesn't have those enzymes that our body needs, and our body makes it. And just as we get older, it stops making it, and the harder the electromagnetic fields are, anything that puts stress on your body will start eating up the NAD. And that's why it was so imperative to put that right into the middle of our protocol.
So to share a little bit more about how powerful NAD is, they actually use this in addiction centers, and they do high doses of it, but someone can go into a treatment center for 7 to 10 days and can come out and no longer have an opioid addiction or be addicted to alcohol. I mean, think about how powerful that is, and it's something natural. There really aren't any side effects per se, and the depth of the repair, the rejuvenation, how it can change that DNA and really affect the neurological pathways so that these addictive patterns, they're broken and someone can leave that center and no longer have the addiction. When we do it as an outpatient, we don't do necessarily all of the high doses that many days in a row. But again, it just gives an inkling to how deeply and how powerful this medicine is.
So for me specifically, the NAD went in and it helped my body get to a better place. My mind got sharper. I felt better. The mobility at the left side of my body got stronger, and it helped the left side of my body start working stronger. I had been for years falling down randomly, falling down as I was walking down the street, especially if the brick was one teeny time higher than the other one. My left foot would catch it and I would go down. So the NAD helped my motor skills strengthen, and I've actually gotten back to the point that I'm running short distances. For me, that's triumphant.
So as Jen started progressing, symptomatically and getting better, I decided that, she had already been doing some stem cells, that I was going to do it the way that I do. And that was a combination of nebulizing the stem cells and exosomes and also doing it intravenously. So stem cells are these pure potential cells of light that have the ability to become any cell type that we need. So we start off as a unicellular being, and the reason that we multiply and have all these different parts is because these undifferentiated stem cells become something specific. So giving them to the body, they really have this ability to go to where we need it. Wherever it's needed, it's where it goes. And then when you add exosomes, which are these tiny vesicles that are on the cells of our body, they're the director of the show, and they do a lot of the cell signaling, and they tell the stem cells where to go. So when we combine the exosomes with the stem cells, especially from the Wharton's jelly, for example, where we have a lot of the adult stem cells, the synergistic effect can be very, very healing. And another benefit to adding exosomes is that they have the ability, because of their size, to cross the blood-brain barrier. So the adult stem cells can get sometimes trapped in the larger organ systems, which is why we do the nebulization. But then adding exosomes, we can cross that blood-brain barrier and really get to the toxins that are stored there and help with some of those symptoms that you were having.
Definitely. It was significant. We would do NAD on the day before that I would get the stem cells and the exosomes, and then we do NAD the next day. And so what it does is it enables your atoms and neurons assist those stem cells and exosomes to go to those places that I talked about earlier that are damaged from having the Lyme and the mold, and having that toxicity did significant damage. And so utilizing the NAD, the exosomes, the stem cells created a new life for me. And it created an understanding that I got so excited about, because I understood the way that it made my body feel. And I started feeling like a whole person again.
At this point, Jen was doing so much better, and I really, really felt like this was the time when I needed to kind of speak to her about looking at some of the layers that ultimately create the physical disease. And so I started to speak to her more on the energetic level, and understanding that everything in our life, everything in our bodies and around us is all a frequency. And if we can elevate the frequencies of our bodies, we have the ability to change the environment. So things that want to hang out there, they can no longer exist, like Lyme disease, like these bacteria or these viruses. So I started to talk to Jen more about looking at the subconscious mind, and how could we get to those places and release things that might have been stuck there and may have been, from her childhood or even existing in her life now. What could we do to help support and heal those places so that her physical body would also get stronger? And I introduced her to someone that does a particular modality, and this one is called Emotion Code. And it is a really gentle yet so effective way of tapping into the subconscious to look at what might be there, and then to transform and release it, and then watch the effect that that has in the body.
So at this point in time, the mold and the Lyme were completely out of my DNA from the prior treatments. But I will say, doing the emotion code was such a significant experience for me that it changed my life from the standpoint of, when you have something like this disease that I had for so long, your body would constantly go into fight or flight mode, because that's all it knew how to do. So going through the emotion code and alleviating these things that I didn't know were stuck down deep in my system, and relieving those emotions coming out of my subconscious, it made my life so much calmer. I reacted in such a better, more calm way, because I wasn't going into fight or flight. It also allowed my mind to look at things differently, and it gave me an opportunity to feel more gratitude and understanding everything that I've been through, because I have had so many people contact me about, we hear you're cured. We want to know how you did it. And that is one reason why we are here together, because we want to share that with people who are desperately seeking hope.
So I would love to say that where Jen is now is probably about 75-80% there. Like, she is so close to that finish line. And again, we're in a human body, so nothing is ever quite done. It's just that symptomatically, so many pieces are better, and she's really on that home stretch. So for me, we've addressed so much of the physical body, we've addressed a lot of the subconscious aspects of herself, and then really looking at how to detoxify her and help her maintain that.
Exactly.
So moving into these final stages, I'm excited to see what the next few months will bring. And for me, my purpose and my passion as a holistic medical doctor is really to tie in all of these pieces and show people that, we can get so stuck sometimes on the details and all of the minutia, all of the lab testing, all of the details of things. And while that is a necessary part, really, sometimes it's more important to step back and really see the big picture and get an understanding of that, because so much more can be healed if we look at things in that way. And then we could deal with some of the things that are still outlying.
Yes.
And that is really, again, what makes our approach together a little bit different, because that spiritual, mental, emotional piece is missed and maybe not given the attention that it needs. And it really is the most critical part. So it has been such an honor and a blessing for me to share this journey with Jen, as I do with so many people, and bring that more into her life and watch her thrive and grow and blossom into everything that I see here before me. And I'm really excited to continue to share this with the rest of the world and be a place of support and light for you all.
It's so amazing just being here and listening to you talk. My brain just went, we are achieving what we want to achieve, and that is to get the word out. Our goal is to be a light in showing people how they can get through a devastating situation and come out the other side. And we know that based on what we've found and the protocols that we've used, it works. We have written a book, and it has all the science. It has my PET scans, 4 PET scans that will show you where my brain was to where it is today. It shows all the mold detoxing coming out. It shows all the science of what has happened, so you can see the proof of how these modalities actually work, and shows how they're no longer in there. And now what we're doing is we're healing those parts, as Dr. Abdul said, we're healing those parts that have been damaged, and we're recreating new cells. So what's so exciting about this is that I'm going to be stronger, smarter, and better at my age than other people may be, because of the fact that I've had these treatments of the NAD, which are boosting my atoms and neurons and communicating. I'm utilizing the exosomes and stem cells going in to repair the damage that my body has incurred and my brain has had. And it's so exciting for me to be on this opposite end of where I was for such a long time. And Dr. Abdul has been amazing, because it's very rare to find a doctor that looks at the entire self, body, mind, and spirit. And that's what's necessary to heal your entire being. And we are so excited to share our information in this book.
And really create the hope.
Exactly.
And this is going to be a precise, effective, focused shortcut.
Yes.
To health, to your healing. And we're excited. We're excited to share the journey and share it with you.
Getting my life back is amazing. And it's not even back, it's forward. The healing that has taken place, the opportunity that we've had to share and be together, and my life is so completely different than it has been in almost 14 years. That's why we've written this book, for the healing and the hope.